Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone for our monthly podcast at Excelsior Wealth Partners. I have monthly contributors sitting around the table, Matt Champion, Kevin Christopher, and our very own Lou Geckel. This month we've decided to tackle one of the more bigger pieces of legislation to hit the marketplace in the last 13 years or so, with this Secure Act that will affect millions of Americans in some capacity. For those of you scoring at home, and I know there's a lot of you, the last landmark legislation that I can think of, gentlemen, and correct me if I'm wrong, that hit the marketplace was in 2006 with the Pension Protection Act that essentially tried to tackle underfunded pensions, a problem we have in America, and charge extra premiums to companies that were underfunded, put some safeguards to protect retirees, that type of thing. But heck, guys, that was 13, 14 years ago. There really hasn't been a ton of groundbreaking legislation since then. If you guys remember, that Pension Protection Act of 2006 had a couple of nuances that allowed companies to add new employees to their 401k without them really consenting to kind of drive up, the number of enrollees that contribute to 401k. So there were some nuances with that piece, but there hadn't been too much until just recently. And with all great legislation in America, it was a Secure Act attached to a government shutdown bill, the avoidance of the government shutdown bill. And in those thousands of pages, as our politicians do these days, they put on a lot of items that, are what I would call agenda type items. Politics being, hey, don't shut down the government. And in exchange, we will push forward with X, Y, or Z. One of those X, Y, or Z's ended up being the Secure Act, which I might mangle this, gentlemen, but stands for Setting Every Community Up for Retirement Enhancement. Kevin, is that what you would have bet that stood for?
Not a chance.
Not a chance, Kevin says. And it was signed into law on December 20th of 2019. Now, what I'm going to do is just give a quick, rough overview, kind of layman's terms of what this is, and then I'll ask our panel to kind of weigh in. The intent of all this is to keep our clients and prospective clients, in the know of any legislation. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, we run 2 to 3 retirement transition seminars per month around upstate New York. We tackle, when to take Social Security, Medicare, what to do with the 401k, those type of things. And a lot of the clients, a lot of the people that come to our seminars aren't really up on this just yet. So here's a brief overview. Your required minimum distribution, the year in which the government says you have to start taking distributions from your retirement accounts, had forever and a day been age 70 and a half, now moves to age 72 with recent legislation. Inherited IRAs, which were kind of clarified in that Pension Protection Act of 2006, are now, minimized a bit. You used to be able to, if I inherited money from mom or dad, stretch that out over my lifetime. And if I got a 20% return in the market and I only had to take out 3% or 2%, that was a big win for me, called a stretch IRA. Contributions are now able to be made after age 70 and a half. $5,000 tax-free IRA withdrawal for first birth or adoption. I shouldn't even say first. I got to get that clarity, but birth or adoption. And then it appears to loosen the rules around annuities inside retirement plans as the declining pension environment does continue. One of the little nuances buried in the thousands of pages, is some people have made this a practice, but a lot of the 401ks now will have your retirement projected income. Repeat, retirement projected income listed on the statement. So if you have a couple $100,000, there's a school of thought that says it doesn't matter how much money you have, it's how much income you have. There's a lot of happiness studies that are correlated to income, not so much assets. A lot of miserable people in 2008 that had millions of dollars that turned it into thousands of dollars that weren't exactly happy. People with big fat pensions, a lot of them,
didn't even care, Matt.
Didn't even care. Didn't even miss a beat, as the kids say. So those are the 5 tenets. Fifth being annuities in 401ks, but I will, say more a focus on income and a replacement for pensions in the marketplace. So there's a mouthful. I framed it up on a T. We'll go right to left here, like the King's English. Actually, it's the other way around, right to left.
You're reading left to right.
Left to right. I believe the Far East does right to left, but I may have that off. NASCAR also, even a broken clock is right twice a day, Lou says. Matt, what do you think about and let me frame up a good question, hopefully, is what should our clients, the thousands of pages of this government shutdown avoidance, what should our clients be worried about or focused on when it comes to this Secure Act?
So I think one of the big things you need to look at anytime a legislation like this is passed is just different planning opportunities that come up. You mentioned the required minimum distribution age being pushed back. It used to be 70 and a half. Now it's age 72. And more often than not, we see clients when they get to that age 70 and a half, now 72, they're at a point where they may not need that money, and they're almost annoyed that they have to take a minimum because they know they're going to be taxed on it. But that presents some opportunities there as well. Just a little bit of clarification on that rule. If somebody was 70 and a half prior to December 31st, 2019, they still are required to continue to take their RMD. If somebody was not yet 70 and a half, then they can wait until age 72. So again, I think the big thing is planning opportunities with the RMDs. If you can leave your qualified pre-tax dollars alone a little bit longer, that presents some opportunities for growth. Trying to look at different income sources, as well as the more and more people are working longer. So it's just to be able to contribute past age 70 and a half to an IRA. I think that presents some opportunities. One piece there, if you are working past 70, you can still contribute to an IRA, but once you turn 72, you still are required to take out your minimum distribution. So that can get a little bit tricky there for people that are working past age 70 and a half. I won't steal other people's thunder, but a few other ideas on that topic.
One of the things that I found interesting is people being able to withdraw $5,000 for the birth or adoption of a child. So that means a married couple, if they both, or they don't have to be married, but a couple that has both have IRAs can each pull out $5,000 without the penalty to take money out for retirement. So that's a total of $10,000. You're still going to have to be taxed at ordinary income. But that is a big deal with all the expenses. And you can also pay that back into there without penalty as well. So I found that to be pretty interesting. Lou?
I would definitely say that the biggest part of the Secure Act that will affect financial planning and families is the fact that the inherited IRAs need to be withdrawn within 10 years. It's going to create a lot more meetings with parents and children, even if they are adult age, to kind of figure out some strategies. It could have some dramatic effects on the next generation. If they're in their peak earning years and they need to take out a couple $100,000 from a large IRA, it'll really push them way up into the higher bracket. If they're older and on Medicare, even having to take out a couple $100,000 from a large IRA from a parent who passed at 95 or so, dramatic problems with Medicare premiums. we really need to focus on that to make sure that wishes are done. It's not just naming a child as a contingent beneficiary or a primary beneficiary anymore.
No, that's fair. Matt, did you have something?
Yeah, so there was a piece to that. So again, you have an IRA retirement account. The beneficiary is a non-spouse, so you leave it to a child. The rule is that the money has to be completely, or the account has to be completely emptied by the end of the 10th year following the death of the owner. But one of the changes is that they're not required to take a distribution each year. So that might present some planning strategies as well to say, hey, geez, let's look at how that distribution could affect other areas, as Lou mentioned. But knowing that you don't have to take anything out each year, every year for 10 years, presents some opportunities there.
There's a couple other exclusions for that rule. If it's a surviving spouse, the beneficiary is disabled or chronically ill. If the child of the decedent has not yet reached the age of majority, meaning they're not a full-grown adult, they don't have to take. They have more than the 10 years. So, those are just some other key points to make sure you're aware of.
So, if I were to say, hey, age 72 as opposed to 70 and a half on a required minimum distribution, a lot of clients see that as a win. If I were to say inherited IRAs, most people aren't subject matter experts on an inheritance. So most people that end up with an inheritance, they haven't done so before. So these rules are kind of new to them. So I don't know if that demographic necessarily knows the ins and outs of this. So I don't know if they would have a strong opinion. Ignorance is bliss. The contributions, as baby boomers continue to age into retirement and furthermore, I just read an article about how our blue collar jobs in America, with the advent of the looming retirement of the baby boomer, is really suffering or will suffer. But these folks, stated differently, might continue to work in a different capacity. So to be able to contribute past 70 and a half might be that of a good variety. And then the birth or adoption of a child, to be able to have some money. We all know I have 6 children. We all know those little kids aren't cheap. So to have a little money to hit the ground running might be a good old fashioned win. But let me move to what I consider one of the bigger pieces of this legislation is the annuity piece, which essentially annuities for years and years and years had gotten a bad beat in terms of investment vehicles that generate income, high expenses, illiquid, what have you. We've heard them all. But to have kind of a focus on this Retirement Act of an annuity inside a 401k as an investment vehicle to perhaps solve the pension issue of people not having enough money outside of Social Security to retire on, seems like an interesting concept given the history of annuities. So if I could, just to, so I'll have a 2-part question for the panel here. One, what do you think is the effect of showing income on a 401k statement? That as a standalone question. And then 2, to use a funding vehicle like an annuity that has gotten bad publicity, what's your take on that? If that is indeed, the answer to, hey, how will Americans retire? There's an old acronym that says this new generation will be the yo-yo generation. You're on your own, whereas perhaps, Grandpa had a Social Security and a pension, and that was enough to, live a great retirement, but those are tough to fund. What's up for this next generation of retirees, using perhaps an annuity inside the 401k, and what will the effects of showing somebody's income on their 401k, 401k statement, that's a new word, be on America's retirement landscape? Matt?
So a couple things there. The one regarding putting the lifetime income amount right on the statement. I think that's a good thing. I think for a lot of clients, sometimes that is eye-opening, both good and bad. They see their account value and they see what that's worth. They see that go up and down, but it's a lot of times it's tough for clients to see that as far as how much potentially they could generate from that account. So I do think being able to see a number right on there is at least a good conversation starter, get people thinking about income in retirement. The annuity conversation is interesting. As you just said, Matt, annuities have always been kind of polarizing in terms of the marketplace. Some people are very pro annuity. Some people are absolutely very anti annuity. So to me, the bigger thing here is really the message that it sends, that you get a lot of people in a room, and this is one of the items in this legislation that they all agree that people need guaranteed income in retirement, to the point where they're going to allow these features inside their employer plans. I think it just sends a message that people are starting to realize, and you alluded to it earlier, Matt, that people with known income sources tend to be a little bit more laid back, easygoing, happier when the markets are up and down, because they know exactly what they have coming in. So again, opportunities there. Will be interesting to see as this law was just passed, what type of features are offered inside these retirement plans. But I do think that's a win. I think it sends a message that known income sources are important in retirement.
Well, I think it's they've always done some version of showing us some kind of income guesstimate on the 401k statements that I've seen in the past. But it'll be nice for people to be able to put into dollars and cents how much they're actually going to get on a monthly basis in retirement. I'm a big fan that they're actually using these, because, yes, you can build a dividend portfolio, but if you catch a down market in retirement, this gives you the ability to know that you're walking to your mailbox and getting another check besides Social Security. And I think that helps a lot of people sleep at night. I don't think that it's right for everybody, but I think having it as an option inside of there is always a good thing. It's going to give people, some more flexibility inside of the plans. Lou?
Well, I guess this is a two-phase question. As far as showing the income on the statement, I think that's a great idea. You usually have to look inside of your 401k and get the income projections. I think for those that actually open up and look at their statement, if it's on page 1 and they see that with their value, they'll see how much income they have. I think it'll actually spur some additional savings, considering most Americans don't save enough. And that when they see that they're only going to be saving enough for $600 a month in income, that might help them save a little bit more. The annuities are another thing. It's probably going to be a good aspect, but as far as I'm aware, right now, we're not too clear on how that's going to work, what the portability issues are going to be. Are they going to be able to attach income riders on it? So just the idea sounds like it's going to be great, but I guess the devil's in the details, in my opinions. Matthew?
Yeah, no, I'm of the kind of the same school of thought, the same camp, as kind of a wait and see on, the streets are paved with best of intentions. Chalk it up as, hey, that this might be the answer to the looming issue we have of retirees not having a secure retirement, frankly. Pardon the pun of the Secure Act. There's only so many jokes in finance, guys. So I have questions of, and part of this is the evolution of, as this thing gets unfolded, is are there GAAP generally accepted accounting principles on has everybody agreed upon what the projected numbers are? Is it 3%? Is it 4%? When I first started in this industry, you could take out 10% of your portfolio, and with 20% returns, you were good to go. Now it's down to, I won't even throw a number, but maybe below 4, depending on the survey or the what's the word I'm looking for? The
Software use?
no, the publication, the study that you linked that to. If somebody sees a number, prospective client, 401k holder sees a number that is not to their liking of guaranteed income, do they take more risk in the portfolio, which a lot of people will do, and then you catch it down market? Is that an unintended consequence of this thing? There's hold harmless of these companies on the fiduciary side. So it looks to me, and take this with a grain of salt, that a lot of the legislators said, hey, we need to fix this. Let's get this thing going. We'll hold these companies harmless with, some of the things that are sweeping the nation with fiduciary and is there enough selection and lawsuits essentially in this legislation? So there's a lot of questions for me. I think you're in the right wheelhouse when it comes to helping Americans solidify their retirement, because again, to have Social Security and a pension as a perhaps teacher and make more than your peak earning year, those were the glory days. Those were the best of days. To now make a lot of money, and perhaps you didn't have a 401k, to contribute to, and you never just got to it, I don't know what's better, is to make more money or to keep more money. I have an opinion on that, but that's just one person's opinion. So I would be of the camp of wait and see on this thing. I think you're headed in the right direction. I do think you need to, evolve when it comes to the antiquated pensions that used to be very prevalent in the marketplace. If the answer is it helps Americans, then I'm all for it. To be determined on the details. And part of me says it's just going to, even if, the details were crystal clear, how does this play out in the marketplace, to be determined. So anything that you gentlemen would add to the topic as it relates to helping our clients either understand this or, position their portfolios in the future?
I think it just kind of shows our clients that Washington's getting a little bit worried about the retirement state of America. They're trying to do things to, at the same time, incent them to save more, at least see the facts that they need to save more. But, it's also trying to take out some of those dollars by waiting till 72 and a half. That's a good thing for a lot of people, but then your first withdrawal is going to be more. It's going to grow more. You may end up leaving more to non-spouse beneficiaries. They may end up paying more taxes. So I think it's two prongs here. They're worried about retirement, but they're trying to get a little extra money out of it too.
Washington try to get money from people?
Lou here has some conspiracy theories that the rest of us don't necessarily share. And I'm saying that with tongue-in-cheek, a little humor there. But I guess I'll say this, is let's keep this topic at the forefront here at Excelsior. Those of you that want to come out and hear some of this stuff live or ask your questions, feel free to contact us on our website or come on out for our monthly seminars where we tackle these topics. We will be sure to keep everyone abreast as this unfolds, but I wanted to today just kind of get this out there, kick the tires, because every month when we're doing these seminars and I ask, when is the new required minimum distribution, 90% of the room, don't take me at face value on 90%, but a good chunk of the room still thinks it's 70 because, again, the legislation, as big as it was in our world of, financial advisors, most Americans aren't up at night reading the Secure Act legislation, page 1094, as it pertains to their situation. So I will end on that. If you gentlemen don't have any final comments, I appreciate your time as always, and be sure to check us out next month. Thank you.